I want to thank you guys, for joining my live, and I welcome everyone to today's live. My name still remains Festus, and then we are continue, our physical hazard, series. And today, like I said, we'll be focusing on something that is more substitute and then power, right? And the topic for today's series is going to be lighting hazard, right? Whether you work in the factory, in the office, or at home, right? Lighting play a major play a major role in your safety and comfort and productivity, right? So, and then, like I always do in my live video, I will have about 5 to 6, parts to this series, so that I don't, bore you guys, because people tends to lose concentration when the video is too long, without no break. So I'm going to do my live is going to be, 10 minutes, right? And I will shut it off. So, like I said, our first part, the topic for the first part of this lighting hazard is going to be what are lighting hazard, right? What are lighting hazard, right? Lighting hazard refers to poor, right? When you have a poor or inappropriate lighting condition, that may result from several issues, right? And then one of them is going to be uh, when you have a lighting hazard that is far, to the poor or inappropriate. Hello, welcome to my live. And then today I still remain, Festo, your host, and then we'll continue to dive into the physical hazard series. And today our focus is going to be on something that's very substitute but very, powerful, right? And then the topic for today is going to be lighting hazard. A lot of people are exposed to lighting hazard, whether you walk in the factory, at home, or in the office, right? And lighting does play a major role, right, in your safety, in your comfort, and then productivity, right? In productivity. So lighting does plays a major role in your day-to-day, routine activity at home, in your office. I mean, nobody wants to work in a dark office, right? Or even in a dark home, right? So you must have light. Even the Bible also says, let there be light, right? So because we need light, right? So the first part, for this series is going to be because we're going to have like several, parts to it, right? Probably like 5 to 6, parts. And I cannot break it into 10 minutes at a time so I don't bore you guys, right? So our first part is going to be the topic of the first part is going to be what are lighting hazards. And lighting hazard refer to poor or inappropriate lighting, condition that can cause, you know, high strain. Because when there's no enough light or adequate amount of light in a space, people tend to strain their eyes, right? And then during that training, you're going to have fatigue, right? Doing that, right? You ever get close to TV and you're just trying to strain your eyes, that way, right? For people that can, see, that far, it just becomes blurry. And then when you continue to stare at that, TV or your phone, your eyes will get fatigued because you're trying to strain that eye, right? And the second part, causes of poor lighting. What poor lighting cause, in consequence of the lighting hazard is it leads to accidents due to poor visibilities, right? Like I said, God even said, let there be light. Walking into that space, and then you are not familiar with that area, right? So your poor visibility can cause an accident because you might trip into something, that is just, they have been positioned within that space that you are not aware of, right? So that's why we need light, and then also when there's not enough lighting, we can, make some poor judgments as well, right? And then when there's poor or inappropriate lighting, or it can also cause human, it can affect their mood, right? And concentration, right? If the light just went off, people that we used to light all the time, and all of a sudden the light went off, right? What do you think is going to happen? Now your mood is going to change because what you're supposed to do with lighting, you can do it, right? Not get aggressive, and then every little thing just gets you mad, right? Tip you off because it just changes your mood. And at that point, when your mood changes, what happens? You lose concentration totally, right? You lose concentration. So, with that being said, it's not just about brightness. We're not just saying, okay, oh, let there be light, and then that's going to resolve all the issues that we have about lighting. It is about the quality of lighting. It's about the quality of lighting. And then the placement of that light and the consistency of the light, right? Yesterday, I kind of touched bases, based on um, um, our vibration hazard, right? If you're working in a desk, in a workspace, you have your chair set up, you have your computer. So if you don't place the computer in an appropriate way, you begin to strain your arm, and then you bend your neck if it's too low, or if it's too high, you tend to like kind of raise your neck, right? Your head up to be able to see, right? So in that process, what you have done, the positioning of that computer or your workstation makes you to be in an awkward posture. And an awkward posture will begin to, have consequence on your body, on part of your body, where the force is being applied, right? If you raise your neck too long, you apply so much force, right in the back of your neck. And then if you look down so much, you apply a lot of force, on the side and the front of your neck, right? And those muscles, that are there, they become fatigued. The tendon that's in there become fatigued. And then, in some times you will probably begin to have headache, right? Because all this is connected to the central nervous system, right? The head, right? Which the head, has the brain, right? So it's not just the brightness of the light, because you can have a lot of light, within the space, and then it does nothing. It just makes you, it makes your mood to change because there's just too much lighting. And I've seen in my office, that some people, they have a brighter light, but they're able to install an adjustment, that you can use to dim, the light. That's the appropriate lighting that they can work with, right? And everybody's different, right? I can tell you that. Everybody is different. Everybody is absolutely different. We are not the same, right? The way I react to life may be different from the way you react to life, right? So we have to be really, mindful of that, right? Depending on person, right? And then, like I said, the placement of where you put that lighting, just even as I'm doing this video, I have to put some lighting, right? Just to make this place bright enough, right? You don't want to, come to life, with me or watch my live video. If I'm just in a dark place, you can see my face because I'm talking. I know some people do that, but I can really function in a place that I can see the things around me, right? So that's why I say we are different. And that light must be consistent. It must be consistent for every individual. If it's not consistent, it just begins to wear your side, right? Because you're in a dark room today, tomorrow you're in a lighter room, the next day you're in a dark room. That change of lighting, from one day to another, or from one time to another, can affect your eyes, right? So with that being said, there's several others, like I said, and then we all have to be watchful for that. Thank you for watching the part one, and then we're going to go to part two. And the part two of this series of lighted hazard. And I welcome you guys that are there. I can really see who is on my life, because the way I position, my camera, right? In the part one of this series, I talked about, what are lighting hazard, and we will discuss about all the different type of lighting hazard that people face, right? And then it also depends on the people, right? Individually, depend on individual. And then this is not just having the bright light, it depends on the quality, the placement of your light, and consistency of that. So to continue part two, we're going to be looking at our topic for part two is common lighting issue. Common lighting issue, right? Let's look at some examples. Number one example that we're going to touch bases on is too dim, right? When the light is too dim, what do you think is going to happen? You begin to strain, your eye. If you're not the type that work in that type of environment, right? You begin to dim your light, and that can cause squinting of your eye. It can also cause headache. And however, I can tell you, I've seen this some report that people that tend to kind of just squeeze their eye for a long period of time, then begin to what? Have headaches. In the consequence of it, does have headaches, right? People have headaches for that. And then error. When it's too dim, you can have error, right? Because you're not really, you don't have enough lighting to perform the type of work you're doing. Then you are you have the potential, right, to do some error, to do some mistakes, right? When is the light too dim, right? So the next common issue about lighting is too bright. When the light is too bright, right? When you have too much bright light. Have you ever drive on the road and then somebody just turn on that high beam? You will see how you will close your eyes because it's like that brightness is a shock to your eyesight, right? It's a shock to your eyesight. And what do you think happens? You quickly close your eyes, and then sometimes, people tend to use maybe the visor in their car to kind of reduce the emission of that light. And then, sometimes, like me, if I go outside and then in the day broad light, when the sun is just too shining, I can really look directly into the sun. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people do as well, right? So the sun outside in a day broad light, is just too bright for my eye at that time, right? That's why a lot of people use sunglasses, right, to kind of reduce, some of those rays that is coming directly to them, some of the brightness that is coming to them. And actually, in the light in summertime right now, If you're in the summertime and the sun is so bright, since you can look directly into the sun, in the sun, there's some rays that comes from the sun, cosmic rays, right? Cosmic rays, is natural. And then if you stay too long outside in the sun, what it is going to happen to your skin? You're going to have burn, right? So it's the light, right? It's just too much of the light, right? So that's why it has all of these consequence and hazard that comes with it too. Right. And then the third common lighting issue is flickering of light. When you're in a room, you flick that light. You flick that light, or maybe there's just issue with the bulb, and then the light is just flipping up and down. That can affect your eye too, and which might even result into some people having headache, right? So we have to be mindful of this. And some might even say, oh, maybe is this just nature, it's natural, it doesn't affect them. Right now it won't, right? If you remember from all our series that we've been doing, we talk about the noise, hazard, we talk about the vibration hazard, and I always say that the dose of every exposure make the poison. And I've made this example several times, for you going to the doctor to have a prescription, a dose to be used, but you use more than what was prescribed, and that causes overdose, right? The same with the sun. If you have too much overdose of that sun, that will cause you some skin acne or some skin burn, or eventually, causes some cancer of the skin. And you might also even use some chemical that will cause your skin cancer as well. But based on this topic, we're talking about light hazard. So that light that is outside, even though it is good for some reason, at the same time, it also have some advanced health effects that affect people. There's always pros and cons to everything, right? Too much of everything is what is bad. Everything is good, but too much of it is what is bad. Drinking water is good, but too much of it can cause some harmful effect, to the person that is drinking. And too much of exposure to light can cause all this skin damage as well. And then the next common issue is poor placement, right? If you doesn't have a proper placement of your light in your office or in your house, that can cause some shadow, right? Which you all know, right? Right now, I'm in my office, in my own office, and the way I placed, the lighting, kind of reflects my shadow, right? So you see some shadow. And then I know some people, are scared of shadow. If you're the only one that's in the house, and then you see your shadow, sometimes you begin to like run after your shadow. Just kidding about that. But it does happen. It does happen that I remember growing up, right? And then you see your shadow, and you didn't know if that's your shadow. You thought there's somebody behind you trying to do you harm, right? So that can create some shadow, which can cause some adverse effect. Oh, uneven lighting in work area, right? This is very important, because work-related injury, they are sometimes, most time, cause they are fatal, right? Which cause death, sometimes, right? But and by law, which I really don't, believe in law, if we do everything right, what you have to do, you have to wait for law, right? So let's just have the appropriate lighting, in the space, so that we don't have any trip and fall or any sleep as well. Because if you have a wet floor and the area is dark, you can that can easily cause you to sleep, right? If you don't see, right? Or maybe there is some wire that went across, the walkway, and because there's a poor lighting, you just that wire just trip you to fall, right? Or maybe some end knocker, right? Some end knocker, there's some extension of a pipe, of extension of a wire in your house, in your garage, in your office, anywhere. If you don't take care of that, that can result into you hitting your head to that wire, to that pole, or tripping, or might even cause some, neck injury as well. If you hit it so hard, that might cause some head or neck injury, right? So all this light hazard, they can actually really cause some hazard, to us. Right. And then also, there's a project that we do as an industrial hygiene in a lighting growth project, to make sure that, we are not exposing people. And then remote worker often use home lighting, not designed for long work hours, right? So they have to be very, very careful as well when they're using all this lighting at home. So with that being said, I'm going to close with this. We have to be watchful about the common lighting issue, right? So thanks for watching. This ends the part two. And then with that being said, I'm going to just go into part three of this series. For anyone that's joining, like I said, I can really see how many people that joined my live, and I appreciate everybody joining. I didn't call your name, because I'm not looking in front of my camera. Thanks for joining this live. What we're doing here is to build a community of occupational hygiene, so we can able to share some knowledge, I can able to share some knowledge, to my audience and to this community, right? And occupational hygiene is to kind of what we do is to anticipate, to recognize, evaluate any hazard, and recommend a control, right? So that's what we do, and then we work anywhere in any organization. There's occupational hygiene, right? So moving forward with part three, the topic of part three is going to be health effects of poor lighting, right? Health effects of poor lighting, right? Any prolonged exposure to poor lighting can lead to several factors, right? Several health effects, like in which we cannot touch bases about, right? The first one, right, is your eye, right? Because you need your eye to see, right? That's the function of the eye, is for you to be able to see, right? Maybe clearly or not clearly, but you have to use it to see, right? So, straining your eye strain is an vision problem, right? Eye strain and vision problem, eye strain and vision problem. So that is some of the one of the health effect of poor lighting, because that will make you to strain your eye, right? And you begin to have a visual problem. Just like the other example that I mentioned earlier, you are in a dark place and then you didn't know there's a water, a wet floor, within that space, and then you step on that wet floor, and then what happened? You slip and you fall, and that can be detrimental, to you. You might break your bone, your ankle, your arm, because you use your arm to land on the ground, and that can cause injury, right? So you strain your eyes, a vision problem causes, body injury, right? So uh, the second one is headache and the fatigue, right? So when you strain your eyes and you have visual problem, it will definitely, some of the symptom is going to be headache, right? Headache, or you're fatigued, right? I have this, happen not to me, But to my daughter, because she strained her eye too much, she constantly having headache. Right? She constantly having headache. And then we just have to just let her know that she have to wear her glasses. Instead of trying to strain her eyes, she needs to wear her glasses more often so she can able to read without straining her eye. And then the third health effect is poor lighting is going to reduce alertness and productivity. Right? When there's no light, you're not going to be productive. There's no way you're not going to be productive. If you have to use light to do work, especially those or the remote worker, if you have to use light to do work at home, you're not going to do anything. If you have to work on your computer and there's no light, what are you going to do? Nothing, right? So we need light. God said, let there be light, and then we need light to do a lot of things, right? Um, and the fourth one is increased risk of sleep, trip, and fall in gym area. I have said this, several times with the example that I've given you guys, that if you have poor lighting in an area, in your office, in the factory, at your job, in your garage, I can bet you, and you have stuff just piled everywhere, that you increase the chance of you having sleep, trip, and fall. That's a potential for hazard, right? That's potential for hazard. So you have to be very, very mindful. So, and like I said, just giving you this example, you can see it's not just people that work in the factory. It's not just people that work in the warehouse. It's not people that just working in the office. It also affects people at home as well, right? You work remotely at home. There's no lighting. A lot of things just shut down, right? For example, there was this time that we have an icing issue in Texas. The light went off because the hive hit the grill, and then the light went off for some days. We can function. Nobody can function. I mean, we're not used to not having light. And then it's also freezing at the same time. You can turn on the heater because there's no light, right? So you can see what poor lighting will cause, right? And if the light is not in the right appropriate amount, a lot of things is not going to work, right? Machine is not going to work. Your computer is not going to turn on because you don't have enough adequate light, right? So without light, that can shut down a lot of things, for us. Um, Thank you so much. These, like I said, I just gave you some 4 examples of prolonged exposure to poor lighting was going to cause. I said the number one is eye strain and vision problem. The second one is headache and fatigue. The third one, it reduces alertness and productivity. And the fourth one, you have the increased risk of sleep, trip, and fall in gym area. Like I said, please like and follow because I'm on this TikTok campaign. So please, if you are new on my live, please type new because that will give me, some reward with TikTok. You can send the comment, hey dear, or say new here. And then if you're able to, you can send, some happy, gifts. I will appreciate that. However, the most thing, I want you guys to do for me is just like and follow. That's going to help, my community, that I'm trying to grow, right? If you're new, like I said, send new here. If you just want to send some message or comment, just say, hey, there, right? Like and follow and share this live so we can have more people on this live. I will appreciate that. And if you're able to, you can sell some diamond. and some helped me as well. I will appreciate that. But just keep tapping, that screen. That's going to help, my tracking too. All right. With that being said, yeah, I'm going to start, the part three, and then take just a few minutes, then we can start, part four. All right. Thank you guys, and I appreciate your patience. This is going to be the part four of the physical hazard. And then the topic we're talking about today on this series is lighting hazard. Lighting hazard is part of physical hazard because it's what we can see, it's physical, right? So that's what this series is all about. And part four, the topic of part four is going to be lighting tips, for safer workspace. Remember, I say workspace, not workplace, right? So workspace because any space that you are performing your work in the office, in the factory, at home, in your car is your workspace, right? So I will be giving you some tips, that you will need to be able to have a safer workspace, right? Thanks for joining, everyone that is joining. Really like what I said before. I can see everyone that is on this live because I'm using the back camera of my phone, to do this live, because when I was using the front, every time I try to write on my board, it looks like I'm left-handed, and then everything just goes opposite, right, in the reverse way, which is not good, right? So I'm trying to do it the right way so I can be able to have the back. So when I'm doing any calculation or writing anything on the board, you can able to read it, right? So still part four, right? Part four of the lighting hazard. The topic for that is going to be lighting tips for safer workplace. And then here's how to improve your lighting, right, in your area. Uh, as I'm a board certified industrial hygiene, and also a board certified safety professional. And then I've been doing industrial hygiene for a little bit over 15, and then mechanical engineer, for like 10, right? I'm also a mechanical engineer, as I just mentioned. So we have instruments that we use when there is no adequate amount of lighting within an area, right? And then the units of light that we measure is lumen, right? If you remember, anytime you go to Lowe's Home Depot and you get a light bulb or the fluorescent, any light, if you look at the pack, it's going to tell you how much of lumen is that light, right? It will tell you, right? Some will say 100 watts, but if you look at it, it's going to tell you amount of lumen that 100 watts is equal to, right? So we have instrument that we use if there's no adequate amount of lighting in an area, right? So we just take that instrument, we just measure it, and then we can able to recommend that there is poor lighting in this area, there needs to be lighting, right? So here's how to improve your lighting. Number one is use adjustable task lighting for close work, right? Just like the ring light, right? A lot of people use ring light these days, right? So if that light, like the one I have right is adjusting. When there's too much lighting, I can actually dim it a little bit. No, but not too dim. If it's too bright, I can dim it. If it's too dim, I can kind of adjust it, right? So you have to use an adjustable light, because you don't want to work in a too dim of an area, which is you begin to strain your eyes, right? It's going to cause some vision problem in the future, right? Or number two, avoid direct glare from screen or window, right? So, for example, like the window, all you gotta do is just you can put curtain, put a blind on it, and then open and close if it's too dark. So you can have, so you don't have a direct lightning, just emitting into your space, right? But when there's too much lightning coming from outside, that can also affect you too. And then also the way you position your computer, your system in the office or your home office also matters too, right? The way it's positioned matters. So if there's direct sunlight, like I said, is directly proportion to that computer, the reflection of that goes back to your eye, right? Or maybe you're using a table light, an adjustable light on your table, and then it is just reflecting to the computer screen. It's going to reflect back to you, right? To your eye, right? So you have to be watchful of that to see the right place to position that lighting, so it can able to work for you. Like I said, light is good, but how much of that is good? How much of that do you need? How much of that is safe for you? Right? So, and then you have to choose a daylight balance bulb for natural fill. And I'm gonna repeat this. Choose daylight balance bulbs for natural fill. Right? In my house, I have a lot of daylight bulb, right? Because I want to be able to go in a space and then it's just bright for me, right? I don't want all those, yellow light looking, style, that we used to have. And I use the daylight, approximately between 6 to 6,000 daylight bulb. That's why I changed, most of my light bulb at home, right? So you have to choose the right one, that will give you that natural feel, But if it's too high, please don't use it so you don't, have you don't have that affect, your eye. And the fourth one is position light to reduce shadow and reflection. I kind of mentioned of that about the direct glare from screen and then windows, right? And also with a direct glare, I just have an example that come to me. If you're staring too directly on your computer, the rays that is emitting the electromagnetic waves that's being reflected emitted from that screen is going to affect your eye, right? So there have to be a certain distance between you and your computer, right? If not, that directly you're too close to it with your eye just directly fixated on that screen, that can cause some damage, to your eye, right? That can cause some damage to your eye. However, you can protect that screen because they have a lot of protector that you can put in front of the screen, so it will reduce, the electromagnetic, waves that is being emitted from that screen, right? So you can able to reduce that. However, too, you can also adjust your computer system too. If it's too bright, you can adjust the setting to contrast it a little bit so it's not just too bright. And this also apply to your phone too, right? Everybody have a cell phone, right? A mobile phone, right? These days, they are very small that you can put in your pocket, right? They're very good because you can go from place to places, having your cell phone. But they can be dangerous too. If you're looking at that computer phone for a long period of time, walking up for a long period of time, that can cause some high problem, because if the lighting is not, if it's too bright, that can affect you. And if it's too dim, that can also affect you. So you have to find a good balance, while you're doing your setting on your phone and on your computer. For remote workers, you have to invest in a proper desk lamp and reduce screen glare, right? invest on that. I have a picture there that shows the type of I mean, there's a lot of type of table lamp that you can get in the market. You can get to go to TikTok, you get them on TikTok, Amazon, in the store, Walmart, they're everywhere, right? They're in the store, right? But just to help you, you need to invest in that. So you don't just train your eye in a dark environment. If the room is not dark enough that you have to strain your eye, that means you are in an environment that has poor lighting, right? So with that being said, I'm going to close with this. Like I said, I'm giving us, like 5 different of safer workplace examples that you can use. Use adjustable task lighting for close work. Avoid direct glare from screen or windows. Choose daylight balance bulb for natural field or position light to reduce shadow and reflection. And for remote worker, please invest in a proper desk lamp, so to reduce screen glare, right? So with that being said, I'm happy to see you guys still with me on my live. We're going to, start for part 4 now, and then we'll go to part 5. Thank you so much. I'll bring some water. Hello, welcome back. And this is part 5 of this physical hazard series. And then what we're talking about, the hazard we're talking about is lighting hazard. And then right now we're on part 5 of this series. And then we'll talk about uh, we've talked about, from part 1, we've talked about what the lighting hazard, common lighting issues. We talk about health effects of poor lighting, and we also talk about lighting tips for safer walking. So the part 5 is what a lot of people get wrong. And I like to write this on the board because if you see, I always have the myth buster for every one of the hazards. And today, since we're talking about lighting, I'm going to put lighting there, which is our topic for today. And because I have to give you this mood buster before we end this live. All right. The number one myth is if I can see the lighting is fine. What do you see wrong with that, right? If I can see the lighting is fine, right? So if you can barely see, do you think the lighting is fine? People, those sleep and fall if there's not adequate amount of lighting in a workplace or in the place. And then we talk about all the health hazard, all the poor lighting effects. So it's not just having a light, but you have to have adequate amount of light. What is the quality of the light? What is the placement of the light? And what is the consistency, right? If you remember, uh, in when we started the live, I kind of give you guys this, which is on part 1, right? It is not just about the brightness; it is about the quality, right? When you place that lighting, and then the consistency of that light, right? So the truth About this is visibility doesn't equal comfort or safety. Visibility does not equal comfort or safety, right? Because the main reason we have light is to make that place for us to have comfort, to be comfortable with that light. If the light is too much, it's going to affect your eye. The glare on your computer or your desktop on your phone, that doesn't give you comfort, right? And it's not safe for you, right? Because there's some risk that's involved with that. We talked about the health risk, that's involved with poor lighting, right? So it's not about you just seeing, but it's actually having a visibility that is comfort to you, and then you will say why the light is there for you, right? And then also another truth is lighting should support your eyes and the task that you are doing, right? That's what we need light for. Lighting should support your eyes and task, right? So if you have to strain your eyes, that is not supporting your eye and it's not helpful for you, right? So to wrap this up, I'm going to drop this question, and then you can reach me anytime. Drop a message, drop some comments, drop some chat, and then we can talk about some of this, right? Because I scheduled this live to be, between an hour, so that's why I don't want to go over. But if you have something to discuss, I can equally stay back and help you, right? Drop your question, like I said in the chat. I'm going to reach out to you as soon as possible. But like I said, please tap like this live, share it. If you're new, please just comment new here. And then if you've been here before, just say hey there, right? Or just hack me, right? Or send some diamond. But the main focus is I want you guys to follow me and then share this live so we can have more audience, to build this community, right? So, with that being said, we're going to end this live from here because it's almost it's about 47 minutes that I've started. Tomorrow we're going to come back with another type of physical hazard. And then I want you to be here because this affects everybody, especially the people that live in the Gulf Coast area. Because it's very, very sunny right now. We're in summertime. And then there is sun, very hot weather right now. And then you can able to give one or two tips in what I'm going to talk about, tomorrow, right? And please, join me the same time. It's going to be 4:30 of Central Time, so I can able to give you the tip, right? So how eat, and then it's going to be about temperature extreme. Temperature extreme. How heat and cold affect your body and performance. And I can tell you, right? I work in a cold office and I can tell you how I feel, So I'm going to hold on to that some of the example. It's going to be a real time example. I want you to join me tomorrow so we can go about this live, right? So don't forget to follow, share this live, and tag someone who works on that poor lighting, right? Until then, see you tomorrow. Bye bye now. Robert Kelly, thanks for joining. Casey, Casey Passard, I'm sorry, I don't want to mess that up. Thanks for joining. Nanahan, thanks for joining. If I missed you, Roger, thanks for joining. 1947, thanks for joining. Mandoli Ray, thanks for joining. Baola, thanks for joining. Clemmy, thanks for joining. Anne, thanks for joining. Lucy, the star, thanks for joining. Sandra Smith, thanks for joining. I appreciate everybody that joined. Baby Distress, thanks for joining.